Today's interview is with the longtime play-by-play voice for ESPN Plus for Southern Miss football, Southern Miss baseball, and Southern Miss women's Lady Eagle basketball. So with all that said, my great friend, and yes, an SMTTT legend, I'm bringing you the one and only Jason Baker. Jason, how you doing, man?
Marchant, man, I couldn't be happier to be on this call with you and settling down and talking some Southern Miss sports.
Oh, man, you're one of my favorite Southern Miss people. I even recently announced my bromance for you on Twitter.
That's right.
You know me, I'm always scared to show my bromance for Jason
That's
Baker.
right.
So. But Jason, I mean, you've just been around this for so long, this Southern Miss world. What do you love most about being a part of Southern Miss and the way that you are?
You know, it's really about the passion from the fan base, the passion for who they are, the chip on their shoulder, the anyone, anywhere, anytime. And, for me, it's the ability that I've been able to be given something that I'm passionate about, which is sports broadcasting, and the opportunity that John Cox has given me to take this and run with this. And man, it's given me memories. It's given my children memories that they'll last for forever. My wife memories, and yeah, it's a mutual relationship that really works well. And I just love Southern Miss, and I love calling sports for Southern Miss.
Oh man, great way to put that. And you're doing a great job as always with Southern Miss baseball play-by-play. I mean, we're off to a good start again. Go figure, 6-2, won both of our series. What do you love most about this team and the rest of the season?
I think this team's going to be a team, Marchant, for me, that I love in the fact that they're going to develop. It's an inexperienced lineup with some holes in it that is getting better every single game. And for me, sometimes I think, certain teams get heavy expectations early, and sometimes those teams maybe underperform. I think this team, has big expectations, but I don't think a lot of people thought much of this lineup to start. But I think this lineup will get in shape. I think it'll get in line. I think it'll figure out the right bats and the right sticks in the right order in due time. And to me, I'm just super excited to see how they develop over time and what can they look like, not on March the 10th, but what do they look like on May the 10th, or maybe even hopefully June the 10th. I think that's what excites me about this team. They're very talented, uber deep in the arms, uber deep in the pen. And that's by design, right? You hire a pitching coach. This is what the style of the roster and the team's going to look like. And so for me, I believe you're going to win. If you really made me pinpoint it, how would Southern Miss ever win a national title in baseball? I would tell you they're going to have to do it with pitching and defense. And I think that's how this team is styled.
Oh yeah, you called 17 strikeouts recently. So yeah, you're definitely hitting the nail on the head right there, man. And Coach Oz, I mean, he did have big shoes to fill with the legend Scott Berry, but you knew we were in good hands with Coach Oz. What's it been like working with him?
Oh, he's the best. He just engaging. His intellect is off the charts. He's playing chess while other people are playing checkers. I think we've said this recently in a broadcast. Cliff Russell and I were joking with our new analyst, Chris Kirtland, and said, you can try to predict these pitches from Oz all you want. And Kirtland was a coach who worked in the dugout with him. But I said, man, his mind is just working different than what you and I are even thinking, or maybe what you think, fastball count, and then he comes breaking ball, or maybe it's a breaking ball count and it comes fastball. And so Oz has just been incredible. He's just he's one of a kind. He is who he is too. What I like is he's not Scott Berry. I find him to be a little more direct than Scott. And I think maybe Scott maybe developed into that. But to me, Oz is a guy that's going to tell you how he feels immediately. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks about that player immediately. It's no sugarcoating. It's not I think maybe it'll turn into this. It's no, this kid has it, or hey, no, this kid doesn't, right? And I've really appreciated that from him, and I've really enjoyed getting to know him. We spend a lot of time during batting practice together. He doesn't participate in BP or anything of that sorts, right? So that's really mine and Cliff's special time to just lean on a dugout rail and pick his brain for a couple of minutes and maybe try to, pluck a story or two out of that mind of his.
Oh, great way to put that. And yeah, he definitely oozes confidence and he delivers a message, like he means it. I mean, I've seen him already make a couple pitching changes. There was no conversation. Next up,
Yep, exactly.
we're doing
Exactly.
this. We're doing this. So, but hey, man, the basketball side of things, great win by the men. The women recently, Dominique Davis. I mean, doing big things. But the postseason's here, getting to March soon. What do you expect first up from the men's side in the postseason?
You know, they've been a unique bunch, right? I mean, they've not been
Say the
healthy.
least.
Yeah, for sure. They've not been healthy for, a stretch. You've not seen this full, complete team for an entire week healthy together all season. But the irony of that is if you could get that possibly in Pensacola, and the trend right now is they're getting healthier. I think they're a team. I know Juan Cardona has gone on record to say, hey, I think we're going to win it all. And, I think he means that and believes that, and he probably should, right? If they get healthy, Marchant, they're as good of a team in this league on that men's side as any. And so to me, it's about the health. If they're missing a piece, basketball is such a chemistry rhythm sport, maybe more than any of them, that in my opinion, when you pluck a piece, let's just say a Curbelo, you take a Curbelo out of that order and out of that rotation, everything's off. Everything's different. It's not to say that they can't win a game without him. But what it means to me is they're just not as potent as they are with all of their bullets in their gun. And to me, if they get healthy and they head down to Pensacola healthy, in rhythm, using their rotation the right way, look, I mean, the sky's the limit. Victor Hart's returned here recently. I don't know the status of what, if they're trying to get Donovan Ivory back, if he'll be back or not. But that's really the last piece hurt. And if they can get everybody down to Pensacola in that Bay Center together, yeah, I wouldn't bet against them, right, to win it. And I think that's kind of how talented they are. It's just been unfortunate this season. They've just never gotten to put all those pieces together for a lengthy period of time. There's no telling what they would look like if they had.
That's a perfect way to put it. I mean, with health issues, what happened to Coach Ladner? I mean,
Exactly.
it's been a roller coaster bit of a season emotionally. So, but that's a perfect way to put this basketball team if they're healthy and get things rolling. Now, the women's side, what are expectations of the postseason?
Yeah, it's going to be tough. The women's side's a little different. There's just a team in this league right now in the Marshall Thundering Herd that are running away with it on the women's side. Only one defeat in conference play. That came to the hands of James Madison. And then, frankly, no one's been close. And so to me, it's going to be Marshall and everyone else. And, it's for us, I think we're trending towards a 5 or a 6 seed, which means we're going to play on Wednesday. You're going to have an extra game to maybe try to run deep into that tournament. If you can be the 6, you don't have to face Marshall until the championship. And maybe at that point, they're an up and down, fast-paced team that plays 40 minutes from baseline to baseline. So maybe you catch them in that championship 4 days fatigued, hopefully, maybe. And maybe it's a little different and you get yourself a puncher's chance. When you have Dom Davis, as you mentioned, Marchant, anything's possible. I mean, she's that kind of dynamic of a player. She can go for 30, 40 plus on any given night. And so that gives you a chance in tournament play. But for me, it's about, can these women get playing their best basketball over this next week? They played really well Saturday, some of the best ball movement I've seen all season from this bunch. And so if that's the way we're trending, then I would tell you, yeah, like, hey, we're gonna give ourselves a chance down there in Pensacola, and just hopefully the seeding works right and you don't run into that Marshall buzzsaw until the championship game.
Yeah, March is up, man. Coming up, March Madness. So we'll see what the men and women. It's exciting times. So we'll see what happens. Just got to get hot. All right, back to you, Jason, and your story. 2002, you called your first Southern Miss game with baseball. I mean, do you remember the moment where the nerves running, where the adrenaline pumping? Talk about that moment.
It's funny. I haven't, till you asked me to do this interview, I haven't thought about that moment, until recently. And it was special. I had gotten a call from John Cox. I was not coming to Southern Miss. I was headed to another institution. I was in college at the time. And I was calling games for Pearl River Community College, and I got a phone call from a gentleman named John Wesley Cox one day and got him on the telephone. And he asked me, he had heard me call a couple of games, was interested in getting me to come help him do some Southern Miss stuff and fill in where there were some voids. And, I hadn't given it much thought, and the broadcasting was just beginning to develop in my life. And I just said, hey, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. And so I actually unenrolled from, I was headed to Mississippi State. I wanted to be a mechanical engineer. So I left Mississippi State. Well, I never actually enrolled in Mississippi State, but I wound up enrolling at Southern Miss, getting into their mass communication and journalism program. And then I called my first game that day. It was a midweek baseball game for the great Corky Palmer. And the story that everybody will appreciate is I got on that bus, and keep in mind, I'm in college at 2002. I would have been 21 years old. I got on in sandals, shorts, and I think a t-shirt to get on this bus. And of course, never really traveled with a team much in a professional environment. And we drove down to Mobile, and I called Southern Miss baseball versus Spring Hill College on the radio for John Cox. And he gave me a piece of equipment and told me how to connect it and who to connect it back to. And the rest was history from that point on. It was a Golden Eagle win that day. And a lot of those people that make up that team were just special friends and brothers of mine. That's where my relationship with Cliff Russell began, was with that team. And of course, we were same age. And so it was kind of unique. I'm out during the week kind of partying with those guys. And then when they're playing sports, I'm calling their games that week. And so those were good times and unique times. And I think back to that. And that's where it all started, was my very first ball game, Southern Miss versus Spring Hill College.
Oh, that's awesome right there. Great memories where it all started. And man, in 2019, I was blessed by my university to be a color commentator guy with you as play-by-play for ESPN Plus, Southern Miss home football games. And I loved it, but I didn't realize how much I had to learn and do until I saw you and the professionalism and the amount of work you put in, man, the attention to detail. But one dynamic that I found fascinating, I had to call it down the middle. Jason,
that's right.
I bleed black and gold. You bleed black and gold. How do you call these games down the middle?
Marshawn, and you know this, right? It takes the prep. It takes the ability to know your opponent. I don't know. Sometimes I think it's hard for me too, right? I do my best on these television broadcasts to not portray it in the full black and gold glasses that I really would just truly love to do it, right? I mean, those are my guys. That's where the relationships are. But you're given this job, and you're tasked with at least respecting your opponent. And to me, it's about you being able to turn on that television and know that's Southern Miss's guy, but that I'm going to give you an honest opinion of the team. I'm going to give you an honest opinion of what I'm seeing that day. And then I'm going to show respect to our opponents. I mean, a lot of the time, these are people that we're going to rework with again. And I think about that a lot, is that this isn't the only game that I'll call against Old Dominion. I'll see Old Dominion again, or UAB again, or, pick a school that we've covered in multiple occasions. And that's where it comes from, is the prep and the relationships of getting to know those opponents. I had my greatest compliment maybe ever on Twitter this past week with the call against Air Force, and the voice for TCU, Brian Estridge, reached out via Twitter and was just a big fan of our baseball product, and quote tweeted a tweet and just said how professionally he found it. And I've met Brian. I don't know Brian, but his son was on the Air Force team. And so he was watching, he had an interest, right? And again, this is someone completely non-biased, watching our broadcast and complimenting at how prepared we were for our opponent. And I do take a lot of pride in that. I know maybe sometimes some Southern Miss people would rather me, fans, if you will, would rather me be a lot more homerish. But it doesn't take long for you to figure out, who I love and the teams that I have and the relationships. I mean, the sport that I'm in right now, baseball, I've got great relationships with a ton of the players, and my son thinks Carson Pato hung the moon, and I do too. And so I hope people can hear that in my voice as well, in the broadcast. But then I also want our opponents to feel respected and feel that I'm treating them. I don't try to use unbiased as much as I try to use fair. I just want them to feel like I'm treating them fair. When their pitcher makes a really good pitch, I think it's fair to say he made really good pitch. It's hard. You're right, Marchand. It's hard because, I don't want them making good pitches against our guys. I'd rather see us, knocking them out of Pete Taylor Park left and right. But at the end of the day, that's not my job. My job is to try to treat it as fair and as professional. And I want the best product for Southern Miss sports that I can give to my talent ability. And that's ultimately every time I take to the mic, that's my goal.
Oh yeah, and you do an incredible job. Like I said, saw it in person. Wish I could have stayed doing it, but COVID hit. Live
That's
out in
right.
Lafayette. The schedule was just too. I needed times and days, but seeing you in person. But you showed bias one quick time, I think, with Danny Lynch's walk-off homer that time with Danny, a little biased. That's the only time I see.
Well, and the funny part about that call, and a lot of people may not remember this, but there was kind of some education behind calling him by his first name 3 times. Was the season prior, if you remember, he wanted to be known as DJ Lynch, had asked to be called DJ Lynch. And I had only called a couple of this was before the ESPN Plus broadcast. And so I had called a couple of radio calls for John Cox and called him DJ Lynch. Well, the next year it was told to us that, hey, you call him Danny. And I said, okay, well, and it's kind of hard when you called a kid by another name to maybe put in your mind that you're going to call him by a different name. And so on that Friday night against FAU, it just felt like a moment where I was going to emphasize we're all calling him Danny. And so that's what came out when that ball left the bat. And I'll be honest with you, so many people have connected to that call. And it's so much about Danny Lynch and his career that he had as a Golden Eagle. And just everybody just seemed to love it. And at the time that night, I just got in my truck and went home. I never knew that, people were going nuts over this call and that Jason lost his mind saying his name 3 times. And I don't know, but people connected to it. And I guess Danny and I'll share that for the rest of our lives. And it's really cool. I joke, I can't wait for the next Golden Eagle named Danny, because I'm sure he'll get the second version of that, I guess. But time will tell when we get that.
Oh, that call was incredible. Whenever I think or read the name Danny Lynch, you're in my head rent-free. Danny, every time, man. So, but you call these games live in real time, obviously, and there are a lot of challenges that people have no clue about doing that and doing it successfully. What are some wow moments from calling live games that you might not have been ready for, and you had to do this on the fly and get it right?
The one that jumps out immediate off the top of my head's DeAndre Brown's injury in the New Orleans Bowl. I was the sideline reporter that night. And if you go watch the film, I'm probably 25 feet from him. As the sideline reporter, I tended to stay about 25 yards downfield ahead of the football at times for angle purposes, to be able to see the play, field level side. And that was a moment that night that it was just tragic that it occurred, but it jumps off the page at me because DeAndre was having a game to that point. And if you remember, he was red hot. I had a conversation with a Chicago Bears scout that night in the Superdome early about DeAndre, and that was his freshman year, I believe. And we were talking about DeAndre and just his measurables and the skill set. And those were NFL scouts already paying attention to him and just knowing what that career was going to look like going forward. And then, of course, that moment happens. And man, it was tough that night. But you know what? That was a night that the Golden Eagles went on to win in overtime and really celebrated that New Orleans Bowl. And it's still just engraved in my mind, kind of watching those events take place that night. Calling that and being the sideline reporter and having to try to find the words to convey back to the booth of, what exactly had transpired. It's just a moment, unfortunately, it's a moment that, I'll never forget where I was. And that certainly stands out. There's some really other ones. I've had some incredible wins that shared moments, becoming bowl eligible for the first time with Larry Fedora's team. We had a coach on that staff named Barney Farrer who had battled cancer that season. He and I shared a moment in the locker room with an interview at SMU. I think that's where we locked up bowl eligibility for that New Orleans Bowl. And it was an interview that I think by the end of it, I was crying, Barney was crying, John was crying. It was just a special moment. Barney and I still have a special relationship. We stay in touch from time to time when we see each other. And those are some special interviews. I don't know, the Scott Berry moment after the Louisiana series last year on ESPN Plus with Cliff and myself, and you're wrapping up what you thought would be the final maybe time that the Golden Eagles were at Pete Taylor Park. We weren't thinking that team was going to host a year ago. And so to hear Scott, the emotion in Scott's voice, and to hear the emotion in Cliff's voice, and to just get to be the facilitator of all of that on that evening, on that Saturday evening, was just downright special, Marchand. I mean, it gives me chills right now thinking about it. And Scott Berry's just been incredible to me. And anything that I could portray of thankfulness back to him through the mic was really my whole goal for that weekend, no matter the results of the games. And it just so happened that Danny hit those 2 grand slams on that day and won that senior night game. And to have that moment with Scott Berry, and I even did a scripted close to that broadcast, something I'd never done in my life, but it was something that I wanted, eloquently to say to his family of how much he's meant to us as a broadcast team, to the Golden Eagle faithful, and to what he's meant to baseball in general at Southern Miss. And so that was a special moment too. Those are some wow moments that I could just kind of think of off the top of my head.
No, that's fantastic. Scott Berry, just what a unbelievable man. He was signing bobbleheads the other day at Pete Taylor Park.
That's right.
You've made it when you sign a bobblehead.
Exactly.
But man, that DeAndre Brown injury, like I'm all into the game, and it's one of those times I remember my heart melted.
Yeah.
For that injury, because we had a Randy Moss talent, like unbelievable, and that have your heart, and you seeing it, man. So, but thanks for sharing those. But Jason, I mean, I don't want to kind of limit you. There's so many moments, and there may be some other you might want to share too, maybe something else. I want to give you the pleasure because I know your mind that's sticking out. I don't want to limit you, man.
Well, and I'll tell you one. I'll tell you one that stands out too. I had never done this before. Was scripting the call for the Frank Gore touchdown against UTSA, where I said like father, and I said nah. I said like son, and it was just I had believed that Frank Gore Jr. Was going to have the career that he was going to have, and you could see that talent, but it was really truly about his charisma in the fact that, Frank Gore Jr. was his own player, despite what his dad had done and the success that his father had. I never wanted people to think, well, Frank Gore Jr. is just that because of his dad. Like, no, he's Frank Gore Jr. because he's freaking good. And he's Frank Gore Jr. And scripting that call was really cool. I had never done anything like that before, to where I would, essentially look down and read something that I had pre-planned to say. And of course, it takes 2 to tango. You got to hope for a moment in the game that gives you that opportunity to call that. And so when he did that, man, it was just special. Like I could see him out in the flats when he caught it, and Tate Watley threw it to him. And when he made the first man miss, I thought to myself, my heart kind of fluttered, like I'm fixing to get my moment. Don't screw this up. And to be able to say what you want to say about Frank Gore Jr. And so then as he went into the end zone, to be able to say that. And I don't know, there's so many more, Marchand. Carson Pato walked one off one day on television against Rice, a grand slam. And, uniquely enough, the timing of it, I had just simply said to Castleman and Cliff Russell, hey, he's never hit a grand slam in his career. And the next pitch, he sends it about 430 something feet. And that one was really special. I don't know, man. There's so many.
I know that's why I wanted to make sure, let's get some more. But
I mean, I'll give you one women's basketball. I don't want to leave my girls out.
Yeah.
Pauline Love, the great Hall of Famer at Southern Miss, hit a 3 in the second round of the WNIT against Mississippi State from about the beak of the eagle or Reed Green Coliseum. It was not the play that was called for Joy Lee McNellis, but Pauline was a real charisma type player and just oozed confidence. And Pauline said, "Give me that basketball, and we're going to go to the third round." And I mean, she takes the ball from a guard and makes a couple of dribbles and then finds some space. And I mean, she hit it from about 30 feet. And it's a moment that, I'll never forget where I was and being able to sit there and I can close my eyes. I can see Pauline lift on the shot. I can see the Mississippi State girl not close out properly. And to beat an in-state rival in women's basketball like that on a shot like that was a special moment too.
That's all. You put me in the picture. See, that's how good you are. You said from the tip of the eagle. I don't think you've even heard that. That's a play-by-play guy. And your attention to detail. And I think I texted you this. When Frank Gore scored a touchdown one time, you said, I can't remember the school, but it was his youth sports team from, what do you remember it off the top of your head?
I don't know the name of it.
I wish you knew, not from his high school, from his youth team when he was like 8.
Well, it was his youth team. So the story behind that, I forgot that I did that, Marchand.
It was awesome. I'm like, that's my guy. That's detail.
He had tweeted something out. Frank had tweeted something out during the week. And of course, we follow each other. And he said something about his Pee Wee program was carrying on this legacy. And they had a funky name. I mean, it was, and I'm going to get this wrong, but I think they were like the Miami-Dade Rattlers or something like that. And I wrote it on my call sheet, and I just said, I'm going to save that for later. And if he gets in the end zone, I'll use that. And sure enough, on that Saturday afternoon, he got loose and scored. And I remember you writing me that. And yeah, I did. That's the prep. And this, I hope Southern Miss people always tune in and feel that I'm prepared and that I've done my homework to try to make it as special of a time. I don't take for granted what I'm doing for some fans who, never get to come. There's a gentleman right now that's been watching Golden Eagle baseball. His name slips my mind, but he has tweeted at me the last several weeks. For whatever reason, his job makes him fly internationally. And so he's not coming to Pete Taylor Park, and he's only getting the perspective from me of this Golden Eagle team. And so I never want that gentleman on that flight watching that game on a Friday night as he's flying wherever he's flying to ever forget like that I'm not, or I don't ever want him to feel that I'm not prepared. I want him to totally feel like I'm ready to give him the utmost, depth of research and the respect for us and just, I don't take that for granted. And I truly, and this, I pride myself on that on both sides, the opponent and us. And I want our fans to be as proud of the work that I get to portray to them as anybody. And I just take a lot of pride in that. And I really hope in some way, shape, or form it comes out. And whether it comes out as the Pee Wee football name of Frank Gore Jr. or whether it comes out knowing, the starting pitcher's parents' names or what have you, I just want it to come out that I'm prepared and ready for each broadcast.
Oh yeah. My respect for you with the work you do and the preparedness. I mean, the year of work with you, you always said, thank you for, preparing for the game as much as you did. I was intimidated to let you down, man. Like literally, this is your booth. I'm the color guy, man. So I didn't want to let Jason.
Those are special times, Marchand.
That was fun. I wish COVID wouldn't have hit, man.
I cherished that season with you, and this. It was really special for you and I to develop a relationship, and you kind of let people into your circle to be able to allow them to see your world. And I told you it's a different world, preparing for those broadcasts, and I enjoyed every second of it working alongside of you, and you dove off into the research and the prep, and so much of it you prep and then so much of it maybe never makes it in, but it's little moments that you put into a broadcast that for instance, I totally forgot about using that Pee Wee name of Frank Gore Jr., but it obviously stood out to you that I went and researched that up and found it and then decided to use it. And those are special times. And that was a special moment in my broadcasting career, getting to share it with you and a Southern Miss legend. And, that's kind of the cool thing is it's brought me connections to, I was in high school when you were playing college at Southern Miss. And so that's not a team that I have a major connection to, but you brought me to that team. the ability to connect and research, that 97 in your career and that team. Those are truly special moments in the booth together. I'll cherish them forever.
I'll never forget that, man. Good stuff. And keeping on the football theme, man, this is year 4, Coach Hall, a vital year for success. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Sure.
And if this is a fair question for you, you can answer. I mean, what would you consider year 4 being a success?
I think he needs to get back to a bowl game. And I just think you need to see this team make another step in the right direction in him leading this program. I think it's fair. And I think you'll see that. I believe in what Will Hall's doing. I think Southern Miss will be better for rewarding and patience. College football is not a patient world anymore. It's not a patient environment. I take Jeremy McClain, our athletic director, to be a very patient guy. What I know of him is patience. And I think we will be better as a football program because of that. I think this program deserves that. To me, hopping on the merry-go-round of coaching carousel every year or every 3 years is not the way to build back who we are and what we are. Number one, I just think financially, I don't know that we have the financial resources as an athletic department and institution for us to be buying out contracts, rehiring a guy. Like, I just don't think we can keep trying to throw it on the wall and see what sticks. I think if you have someone building it the right way, I think patience should be rewarded. I get we want to see results. I get we want to see improvement. And I understand that. And it is an improvement world and it's a results business. And Will Hall understands that better than anyone. I think you'll see that. The fluidity of the quarterback has been maybe the nemesis of what's hurt him through 3 years, meaning what I believe if, whoever winds up being the starting quarterback this season, if it's somebody different, it will be his 4th starting quarterback to open the season in the 4 years. And that's college athletics today. Some people can chalk that up to the transfer portal. To me, it's about he's still trying to find that guy. He's still trying to find the trigger man for this program that can lead us. I point people when people want to talk about football, and I get it a lot that impatience is there, but I will remind them, I covered Austin Davis as a redshirted freshman all the way until the championship run year. Austin Davis developed over time. We had to have patience with AD. He wasn't the quarterback in year 3 that he was in year 1. He was much better. The same for Nick Mullen. I think the same could be said for Lee Roberts too. And so I just think if we want to be where we want to be, I think we've got to do things maybe a little outside of the box of college football. And one of those things, and this is crazy, one of those things is patience. I think if you believe in what he's doing, if you believe in the culture, and I do, I think time is of our greatest benefit to give this man time to find his guy. Because let's face it, let's say the quarterback from Florida State, Tate Rodemaker, is his guy, and that's who's going to come in here and win this job. Well, by my count, he's only started about 3 or 4 games at Florida State in his college career. Now, he's had some big wins in those 4 games, but really he's going to be very green behind the ears. And so do y'all expect, I'm saying to the fan base, do you expect this guy to be what Austin Davis was in year 3, 5 games in? I don't think that's fair to Tate, the program, anyone. And so to me, like, patience, give it time, let this thing develop, see it through. Now, look, if the program takes a step back, it is what it is, right? But I believe in Will Hall. I believe in what he's built. If you look at it, we have not seen the mass exodus to the portal like other programs have seen. He has also plucked out of the portal. He has not built this program out of the portal. And I think that's 2 different things. Texas State built the team out of the portal for a year ago, but now they're having to rebuild that team again. You just watched, they just lost TJ Finley out of the portal. They tried to hire another quarterback out of the portal. He's no longer in school. So now this is a program that made a tremendous leap because he built this whole thing out of the portal. Now they're back at scratch, at square one again. To me, Will Hall is not doing that. He's putting pieces in place to stack on top of each other. I get we want to see improvement. I'm with you guys. Look, I was as sick for Will Hall on that Thursday night loss against South Alabama as anyone. I was on the road with women's basketball. I watched it just like any other fan would from the TV. And I was as gutted for him as I've ever been for maybe any coach I've ever covered, because I want him to win that bad. He doesn't need performances like that, and it's no secret. He knows that. He's no dummy. And to me, it's just it's still time. And I think this team can make a bowl game. And I think if you get him to make that bowl game, then that's a step in the right direction, and he should be given another year, and then we'll go forward. And hopefully at that point he's got a quarterback and he stacks it on top, and then you can kind of escalate those expectations. And who knows at that point. But look, in today's college athletics, he hits on a couple of recruits out of this portal. Rodemaker winds up becoming this big time quarterback that you hope he is. I mean, they could win a Sun Belt title too in next year. I mean, that's not inconceivable either, right? Like, I don't think that's my expectation for the team, but time will tell, and we'll see. I'm really excited for the future of the program.
Oh yeah, Rodemaker and John White coming in, the other quarterback from Academy
Sure.
Ball. I mean, we got the quarterbacks to do this and see what happens. One thing I love, and I've talked to Coach Hall in person about this. I mean, he gave up play call last year, and finished the rest of the season. I mean, Jason, let's call it what it is. We didn't win as many, but man, we started playing better. And then gets back into his first year. We went 3-9, and somehow people were just still fired up about this program because you love Will Hall. I mean, he's so likable, and he's just got this energy about him. You saw it come out, and it's hard not to get excited for this year, because I think we're going to get Coach Hall, out the play sheet a little bit more, just in and out, firing people up. Hell, he's out fundraising right now, getting people fired up, to the top collective thing. So this is going to be quarterbacks. Interesting year, man. We'll see, Jim. But great.
I hope so. Yeah, I hope so. It's good for my business if the team's good, right? I want them to be. Yeah, for sure. I want him to be as successful as possible, and I think he can. There's some question marks. You lose a program type player like a Frank Gore Jr. For me, I'm going to scratch my head a little bit and think that was a lot of carries and a lot of touchdowns. How are we going to replace that? But time will tell. And the beauty of it is, and I'm a proponent of the portal, so I'm a guy that thinks these guys should be allowed to kind of fluctuate throughout their college career, find the right fit. It only takes one. I mean, it really does. It only takes one kind of guy like that to change, maybe an impact on offense, to change everything for that offense from one year to the next. And so, hopefully Will Hall's got a couple of those guys out of the portal, and we'll see. Maybe it's a quick turnaround next year. I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, we're fired up for some Southern Miss football. You depend on it, I depend on it for viewers and things. It was funny. I was putting some shows out, big names from the past, and it felt like as we were losing a little bit more, people are like, oh, great, another story about how good we used to be.
Right, for sure.
But
I need to try it first.
But hey, Jason, man, you're my guy. Let's have some fun questions if you don't mind.
All right, let's do it.
All right, let's go, man. First up, what's your favorite sports movie or movies?
I'm a big Moneyball guy. I've read the book. I'm not the biggest movie watcher in the world, or TV for that matter. I'm a reader, so I had read the book, and the movie is a top 3 sports movie all time for me. And Moneyball's right up there at the top of that list for me.
Oh, good stuff right there. Second up, I mean, people that have inspired you to be a great play-by-play announcer. I mean, who are some of the great ones that you look up to?
I'm a big fan of our guy, the voice of the Golden Eagles, John Cox. He has been so kind to me. He has poured into me time and time again. We just have a really cool and unique relationship that I cherish forever. This past Saturday, I listened on a call. I listened to his baseball call and his men's basketball call while traveling back to Hattiesburg. And he's a great influence of mine. I am a huge Chris Fowler, Kirk Herbstreit guy. I love their ability to tell the story. that working with me, it was Herbstreit was the guy that I said, look, if you want to be the best, here's the best color analyst in all of college football. Those are some guys that stand out. But my greatest influence, clearly John Cox. I mean, we've worked together alongside of each other. And, we live kind of opposite lives now because of where I'm at with calling TV and not on the radio so much. But then when I'm on the radio, it's women's basketball and we're opposite worlds. And I see him or call games alongside of him about 3 to 5 times a year throughout the course of basketball season now. And I promise you, I cherish those moments so dearly because of what he's meant to me and the influence that he has been on me, and just the dear friend that he's been to me as well.
Oh, that's incredible. He's an encyclopedia of Southern Miss. I had to fill in for Lee Roberts 2 seasons ago and to be in the booth with him and to see he's there man. So early. He's there.
Yeah.
He's your guy you want calling games, that's for sure. All right, Jason, from 2007 to 2011, you were a sideline reporter for Southern Miss football. Give me some wow moments or one big one from the sidelines that you saw. You gave me a big one, obviously, but another.
Well, yeah, but I'll give you another one. This is a great story. I'm going to give you 2 if I can. The first one happened. My son Jackson, my oldest, was born on 9/3 of 2008. 3 days later, if you go look it up, I called a game at Auburn. I think it was the first road game of Larry Fedora's tenure at Auburn. It was at 11 o'clock on a Saturday morning. Back then, they were Jefferson Pilot football games, and I was the sideline reporter. I came in on Friday night, and we're prepping, and one of the things that you do for Cox is you mic up the coin toss. And so it's myself, Austin Davis, I want to say Gerald McGrath might have been a captain for that team, maybe Tumbo Bonaconda, but anyhow, we're walking out to the coin toss. And so I walk directly next to our captains and alongside of the side judge on our sideline, and you go out to midfield, and then I stand there with the referee and I mic up this coin toss. Well, at Auburn, they have Spirit, which is their eagle. And I don't know what number Spirit this was, but the way that they get Spirit, they let him go. They have a trainer, and they take a mouse, a toy mouse, and they throw this mouse out at midfield. And everybody's huddled over the top of the midfield stripe, so the bird can't see the mouse. And then as you get done with the coin toss, you break away, the bird sees the mouse, and here comes the bird, okay? So we're in the middle of this coin toss routine, and there was a guest coach that day that the referee's introducing, and I'm miking it all up. And all of a sudden, the trainer for Spirit is standing to my right, and he walks up, he leans up, he says, "Hey man, I would watch out." And I just kind of turned to him and said, "No, I got a job to do. I can't move." And he said something else like, "Hey, I would watch out." And I looked to Austin Davis, and Austin looks at me and was like, "Bake, what is he saying?" I said, "Man, I don't know." And he said, "Hey, that bird saw that mouse. I would watch out." And before he could get watch out the third time out of his mouth, here comes Spirit, live coin toss between me and the referee, just zoom, and it hits this mouse. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And I mean, look, his talons are sharp, right? The guy wears the big sleeve. Oh yeah. And I mean, ironically enough, it's a golden eagle is what their mascot is. It's what Spirit actually is by breed of bird. And I'm like, my gosh. And I remember walking back to the sideline, giving John the report of what happened with the coin toss. And JC said something along the lines, he was chuckling. I mean, he saw the whole thing, and he's like, "Was that bird supposed to do that?" And I said, "Hell no, that bird wasn't supposed to do that. That was a malfunction like I've ever seen." And so I just remember, like, that was one of those moments as a sideline reporter, like, you can't script some of that stuff, right? it just happened. It was just a hell of a day. That was a wild day too. Larry Fedora cussed on the way into the halftime locker room with me on the interview. He just said, and I hope I can say that, he said ass. He was just like, "We got to get our ass in gear." And I kind of chuckled, and we got done with the interview, and Larry and I would sometimes, like when we got done, he would just look to me and ask me a question or say something to me, or "Did you see this?" And he looked at me and said, "Did I really just say that on the air?" I said, "Sure did." He said, "Oh, man." I said, "Hey, don't worry. You're only in game 2 of year 1, Larry. They're not firing you over that, bud." And slapped me back, and we've had chuckles about it since. And so that was a good one. And then probably one of the other wow moments as a sideline reporter for football happened against UTEP at the Rock on a Saturday night. There was a tight end for UTEP made a catch right along the sideline, and he was basically in my lap as he got hit from behind by Martez Smith, the linebacker for the Golden Eagles. And when he got hit, this kid hits the ground and rolls over, and he's unconscious. And I can see him just not in the right frame of mind. And I mean, it was one of those collisions that just made you think, man, what a violent sport. He wound up spending the night in Forest General Hospital. He was severely injured. He wound up making a full recovery, but his kidney had deflated. And they wound up having to fly him back to El Paso about 4 days later. And it was just one of those moments as a sideline reporter, you just never will forget where you were when that hit happened.
Oh, wow, man. Wow, the Eagle talent and that, man. No, it's funny, too. You asked if you could curse on this show. I had a couple former athletes say before the show, can I curse? I said, yeah, absolutely. And then about 25, 30 F-bombs later, you just slap an NSFW.
That's right.
Maybe not that much, but, just an NSFW on that show. But great moments right there. And then last up, Jason Baker, I mean, it's high expectations, this baseball program. Just one more time, what do you think will be the one thing, if you repeat yourself, that'll get us to Omaha?
I think we're going to ride. I had this conversation with Christian Ostrander just a couple of days ago. I think if we get to Omaha, it's going to be on pitching and defense. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that the path for a team like Southern Miss to be able to compete at the highest level is going to always be, we're going to have arms. And what I mean by that is, I think when pressure presents itself, when super regional moments present itself, that pitching can win against good hitting. And I point to Rice, and Oz and I actually had this conversation. If you look at the way Rice won their national title, and this was 21 years ago, that was in 2003, Wayne Graham had the best arms in the country. And that's how they went to Omaha. Because here's the thing, while I want to see this program get back to Omaha, I think we're to the level of a program now that it's not just about getting back to Omaha, but it's about winning in Omaha. And to me, if you get there, you can't just get there with minimal arms and think you're going to have success. It's about getting to Omaha and having those arms stacked up and that bullpen stacked up to make some noise. And if we do that, that's how I think we're going to do it. And so to me, you're going to have to hit. Don't make no bones about it. You're going to have to score runs, right? But to me, our path is going to be with arms, with defense. And luckily for us, we've got arguably the best pitching coach in the entire country kind of navigating this program forward. And I mean, we'd be fools to think that we're not going to be styled in that manner. That's just who Christian Ostrander is. And so I like this team. I like this staff. I think it's a pen that's extremely deep. I like this team, kind of link this team back to the 22 team. I don't think it has the elite arms that 2022 had in terms of maybe the stuff like a Tanner Hall and a Hurston Waldrop that had this electric stuff for that 2022 team, and the Landon Harpers, the Dalton Rogers. But I think the depth of this staff, the depth of this bullpen, Marchand, I really believe, it could be that tight team. And to me, that's how you're going to do it. I don't think we didn't out-hit Tennessee enough. I just think we couldn't control their lineup enough a year ago to surpass them in that super regional. And to me, that's what it's going to be about, is getting a staff and a bullpen together, pitching at the right time, performing at the right time. And I think that's how you do it, is pitching and defense, and, find enough runs to win. And look, I like us as much as anybody, with an opportunity. All you got to do is punch that ticket to the first regional, and then it's, what is it, a 1 in 64 chance that you got an opportunity to get there. And obviously, the more you decrease that down, the better those chances are.
It's got to be fun calling games where fans' expectations are to at least host a super regional, man. That's right. That's the minimum we expect. So, hey, man, Jason, good stuff. Awesome moments right there. But let's get on the family side, man. You got a beautiful family, wonderful family life. They don't make dads better than you. So give us some family updates, Jason.
Well, I really appreciate those words, Marchant. This time of year, while we're recording this, is for my family the busiest time. I couldn't do what I get to do without my wife, Lauren Baker, and the way that she supports me in this dream. And she's really. There's been times that I've looked to her to say, "Hey, is this too much? Is the travel too much? It's a very busy schedule. I'm coming off a run of about, I think, 15 broadcasts in the last 11 days." 12 days. And so that's a lot. I have two young boys, Jackson, who's 15, who's very active in outdoor life and tennis right now and football. And then my youngest is my sports nut. He's the one that I could one day see maybe following in his dad's footsteps and trying to call games. He's the guy that remembers stats and remember games and players. And he's a baseball, basketball, football kid that really just loves it all and has been given some access to some really cool things. I'll share with you a really unique story, Marchant, if I can, really quick about my family. Camden, last baseball season, was at a game against Southeastern. My wife and my oldest son had an event to go to. It was on like a Wednesday night. And Lauren texted me and said, "Hey, Camden is not wanting to leave this game. Can he come sit in your television booth?" I said, "Sure." And at the time, we had J.R. Teagues, the athletic director, on our broadcast, and we're interviewing Jay. And so there was no chair for Camden. And so he comes into the booth and he sits on some steps behind me. And I happened to notice that Camden was very quiet. He was not asking a lot of questions of me, like, the normal stuff that a kid would ask. Can I go to the concession stand? He loves John Cox, so he would want to go see John, or Mr. Jack Duggan. He would love to go see those guys. And he wasn't asking any of that. And so the broadcast ends and he meets J.R. Teagues and we get done with the broadcast and we're on our way home. I live in Poplarville. We're south of Hattiesburg, about Purvis. And he looks at me and he says, "Hey, Daddy," he was like, "can we get our season tickets at the Pete moved to the new seats?" And I didn't understand what Camden was asking. And I said, "What are you talking about, Camden?" Well, just so happened that night, Southeastern had no radio. And Jeremy McLean was sitting in the booth next to us. And he was reviewing some future plans of stadium renovations. And so my son was sitting there eavesdropping over Jeremy's shoulder through a glass window. And he was one of the first ones to be able to see some renovations coming to Pete Taylor Park and come into
we were dying to see those.
Everyone's dying. Well, I have a kid. I've not seen them, but my youngest son has seen some renderings that only him, Jeremy, and my understanding.
Jason, can I get him on the show? Maybe.
I don't know. I think
no. He knows stuff we
know. To Jeremy for that. I think him and Jeremy have a great sworn secret, and they're going to keep those amongst themselves. But it was one of those moments in my life that I just thought to myself, like, maybe my kids one day will hopefully appreciate maybe some of the access they've been given, and it's a really cool moment. I know Camden and Jeremy have talked about them and talked about the plans and the unique things that are coming in the future at Pete Taylor Park, and it was other facilities as well. And so that was one moment that I still chuckle to this day. That, I mean, at the time Camden was 10, and I just laughed to think, like, what 10-year-old has been given some of that access, and that was just a really cool moment. And I'm so appreciative of Southern Miss and what they've allowed my kids. Camden has taken BP with the Golden Eagles. He has shagged balls with the Golden Eagles. And I'll forever, eternally be grateful for Southern Miss Athletics allowing the access that my family's been given. And I hope my kids one day, as they grow up older, will appreciate some of that access too.
Oh, good stuff right there, man. And great parents they have. And one thing I've always thought this, behind a good play-by-play, great one like you, play-by-play guy, you really have to have a strong, patient, and understanding wife. That's for sure, because it's a lot of time.
There's no doubt. No doubt. Absolutely. Lauren's probably logged more hours on ESPN Plus than the average person, I would imagine.
That's awesome. Yeah, you guys are amazing, man. Thanks for the family update. So, Jason Baker, as we kind of wrap things up, what's a message you might have for the Southern Miss fans to get us all fired up for the future?
Yeah,
Give us
this is
something.
what I hope. This is Marshawn. As I've thought about this throughout this interview, this is what I want to say to the Golden Eagle fans and the folks that are watching this podcast and listening in. I just want to say thank you for being you. I want to thank you for being passionate. I want to thank you for the kind words, messages. I cherish everyone. I try to respond to every single person who's ever reached out that told me they've enjoyed a broadcast of mine, or that they hope one day that, I'll call this game or this sport or what have you. Every one of them means the world. And to the relationships that have been built, I have friends now that I would call friends for life because of this institution. We all share one thing in common, which is, Southern Miss sports and athletics. And to those fans, you just keep your passion. I know college athletics is kind of an unforgiving world at times. Sometimes we seem plagued a little bit, and maybe we don't think the future is as bright, but I think we just got to keep treading forward. I think we have to understand that we're in great hands. Our leadership of our sports is phenomenal. We are in some of the best hands that I've ever been around. I've worked with multiple ADs, and I would stack Jeremy McClain against any of them, and the support staff that he has built amongst his associate ADs as well is top notch. And to those Southern Miss fans, you just keep being you. You keep being passionate. You keep having that passion to be who we are, a chip on our shoulder. And again, thank you to you, those that have ever reached out and said any kind of kind word or critical word. I take those as well. And, I've enjoyed those as well. And again, thank you to those Southern Miss fans that always exude that passion. It doesn't go unnoticed.
Oh man, incredible words, and thank you for the kind words right there, Jason. And I tell you what, you're a true Southern Miss guy like me. Whenever I get down with a loss, I think of Mickey Spagnola's quote: "We know blood, we know sweat, we know tears. Don't fight Southern Miss." That's what
Right.
keeps us going. It's a beautiful
Absolutely.
thing. So, but Jason, I can't thank you enough for being on my show today, man.
Oh, my man, it was a pleasure, Marshawn. As always, you know this. I cherish our relationship dearly. I'm so grateful that you took an opportunity to come work alongside of me, and that football season together. COVID hit, and it's unfortunate we'd have got a couple of other seasons under our belt. But you know what? That's how life works, and that's okay. I cherish that season. You're my guy, man. You know that, and what you've done for me, and the belief in those broadcasts of myself, the confidence that you exuded into me, Marshawn, I'll take with it till the day I die, my man.
I appreciate that. Nothing but respect for you, Jason. So I think as we close this up, a great way to close this show would be for the great Jason Baker and myself to give everybody a big Southern Miss
To the top, baby.
to the top, baby.